Okay, so for this interview, I will kind of play both roles since this is not necessarily the most ideal situation. So I'll just read the question and then I'll answer it as if I was interviewing. Tell me about yourself. I'm originally from Colorado. I grew up in a small town in Colorado. I have a sister and a mom and my dad who are still together. And my sister currently lives at home. She's a nurse. And so growing up, being in a small town, played 3 sports my whole life, had a lot of injuries growing up, so going through some adversity with that. And just in general, being around sports, I grew a huge passion for sports medicine. And being around doctors, athletic trainers, physical therapists, I've always had the nature for that. And so growing up in a town where physical activity is probably one of the prominent things that we do in terms of just everyday living. So being in Colorado, there's a lot of things to do outside, hiking, biking, rafting, rock climbing, all that good stuff. And so for myself, growing up in that kind of nature, I always had the passion to be in sports and be around sports, and so I never wanted to leave it. And so when I found that sports medicine was something I was interested in, I took it and I ran with it my whole life. And so I think where I've grown up and what I've been doing my whole life has kind of led me to where I am right now as an athletic trainer. I currently work for the Detroit Tigers as an athletic trainer in their minor league organization, and I think that it's truly helped me become a better clinician. And just as a professional in general, I think that it's really opened up my eyes to future possibilities, and this is why I'm here today. Question 2, how has your previous work experience prepared you for this position? Previously, in undergrad, I worked as an athletic training student at Kansas State University, and I really had the opportunity to work with a few different sports. And as I got older in the organization and within the practicum, I was able to work with a lot of athletes on my own. And so just building my relationship with athletic trainers, physicians, I knew that this was the passion and this was the profession that I wanted to choose in my life. And so going forward, I think that that's really helped me. And in terms of working with undergrad students and undergrad athletes, from there I moved on to graduate school at Missouri Western, and I was able to work a year with volleyball and baseball teams and really getting to establish myself as a professional clinician on my own, and really not having that person that's above you in a way to kind of shadow you. And so really you're on your own in graduate school as an athletic trainer. So I think that stepping stone right there really pushed me to kind of find my strengths and my weaknesses and where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do about it. And my passion for athletic training just kind of grew from there. And so having the opportunity to come onto the Detroit Tigers as a athletic trainer, I took that job a year into grad school, and so this is why I'm finishing online. And so for me, I think that that's like the biggest step in my next part of my career. Was really just establishing I needed to take this opportunity to further develop myself as a clinician, but still be able to finish school and go from there. So I think that working with both sides of the party, they both understood what I was doing, and so taking that next step is what I needed to do, and everyone is on board with that. What is a work-related weakness of yours? For myself, I like to do a lot of things at once. I like to make sure that I'm trying to do everything correctly, but also get as much done as possible. So for myself, it is time management. And I think that if I can manage my time in a way to necessarily focus on one task at a time and go from there, I've had issues where I try to do multiple things at once and maybe not focus something that needs to be done rather than, working together to make things equal. And for myself, I think that that's kind of the biggest issue, is just making sure that you focus on one thing at a time and then move forward. Question number 5, tell me about a time when you had to solve a work-related problem. What was the result? So as an athletic trainer, I had an athlete come up to me and report that they were feeling depressed. And so from there, that's kind of an eye-opening moment. And, that's something that needs to be handled right away, because that's an issue that we, need to solve, and we need to make sure that's handled the right way. So for myself, as a clinician, I went above where my practice leads, and I talked to my head athletic trainer and discussed kind of what the next steps were. And so for me, taking that discussion that I had with my athlete, relaying it on to our head athletic trainer in a way that didn't, really all information that was given, but enough to make sure that, that comfort and that personal trust was still being established, but also in a professional way to make sure that the athlete was being taken care of. So from there, we talked to the head physician for our team, and we were able to establish a certain kind of method that we could go about. But for myself, I think that's a big step in professionalism, is that you sometimes have to go above what you can do as a personal athletic trainer and make sure you're getting resources to make sure that things are getting done correctly, but yet still establishing that personal trust that you have with your athletes, but to ensure that they're getting the right kind of safety. So for myself, it was a big challenge to ensure that the athlete that I was working with was still trustworthy of me and still getting the correct help and making sure that I was relaying the correct information for them to get the help that they needed. So kind of going above what you need to do as a personal clinician and establishing that personal trust and keeping that personal trust, but also being responsible and professional at the same time. And for questions for the interviewer. So myself, I'm big into leadership. So what type of leadership roles do you expect your employees to hold toward their peers and to their athletes? Second question, as a team, it's important to build chemistry. And I'm wondering, in terms of our team or your team that you are leading, what are some strategies that you use to help create a positive environment? Question 3, as a leader, in what ways do you challenge your employees to continue to learn and develop? Question 4, what is the number one goal for you as the clinician to instill the values and professionalism of your employees?